I told this analogy when we went up there in the playoffs. It was the line from the movie Catch Me If You Can, when the dad says to the son, you know why the Yankees always win? And the kid goes, because they have Mickey Mantle. And the dad says, no, because everybody's always staring at the pinstripes. And the point was, don't look over there and see it as Tom Brady and be like, oh my gosh.
Mike, what's interesting, I told the staff today, I said, why does it feel like Mike Vrabel's been coaching for 20 years? Like, I can't remember the coaching with the Titans before you. And it's because, the Ohio State, and then you were an assistant. And, you're one of these guys that is a very young, older guy. You've been in the public consciousness forever. So you've only been there from 2018.
25 years, National Football League and in Ohio State, right. 25 years. I think that's where my mind goes.
If I said today, you coach against rookie head coach Mike Vrabel, where would today's coach work you on your first day coaching as a head coach in the league? Where have you really made a jump, in your opinion?
I think just the comfort level of knowing that there's going to be so much uncertainty and you're not going to be able to control everything, and you're going to have to just not worry about distractions and trying to avoid them. It's just, how do we handle them? It's just, things are inevitable. I scripted the rookie minicamp. I said, we're going to fumble 3 snaps. We're going to throw an interception. Linemen are going to run into each other because one's going to go to the right and the other one's going to go to the left. And you guys are going to run into each other. And all these things happen. And they came back laughing after the first practice. I said, I feel like I kind of can script these practices. I know just how they're going to go.
Mike, it's some of Belichick's assistants haven't done well. You weren't a classic assistant. You went the college route and then came around. So when I've talked to some of the former Belichick assistants, Bill has such a presence, and he's such an intellect that it's when you're in his presence, you feel like he's a little bit of a guru. I mean, you're trying to soak in all of it. And a lot of coaches have said you do a really bad impersonation of Belichick instead of being yourself. And with you have such a strong presence. I don't think you fell into that. I think when I look at you, Mike Vrabel is Mike Vrabel. You're not going to be anybody else. And your wife was a college athlete. You're a former pro football player for 14 years. Do you think because you had such a defined personality and presence, you soaked up some stuff from Belichick, but there's no imitating?
I mean, absolutely soaked up a lot. But I think that my experience there was as a player with other great players. I mean, I've really tried to take a lot from, whether it be Teddy Bruschi, Willie McGinnis, Rodney Harrison, experiences with Tom, or any of the offensive players, the coaches, Romeo Crennel that I had in the NFL, and then try to mold that, whether it be working for Bill O'Brien or even working for Urban at Ohio State, the conversations with Luke Fickell and Marcus Freeman. I've tried to take all these different things and just say, be me, be myself, and react how I would react. But these are things that these guys are really good at. How can I, use them to help me or help this team?
You have to be really organized, right? Like every great coach I've known is organized. Were you an organized player?
Is what's ever behind me, if that's organized on the screen on back here, I just make my notes back there because I'm not much of a computer. I kind of just stay organized up here.
Do you, I'll give you a coach and you just tell me a sentence, what you glean from that coach. If I say to you, Bill O'Brien, you were under. Bill O'Brien, what did you take from him?
Authenticity. I remember him saying the beauty of coaching is believe in something, have a philosophy, get the players to believe in it. And there's going to be a million different ways, but you have to believe in it and you have to do it your way.
Urban Meyer.
Teaching. Urban was mandatory that you be a great teacher with these college players, and also the connection. I realized in college the connection that you have to have between a player. You get there and they're 17, 18 years old, and they're spending a lot of time with you, and you're a father figure for most of those guys.
Belichick.
Being prepared for different situations. Also being flexible and understanding that things are going to change. Things are going to constantly come up, and you have to be willing to change and adapt.
See, now that surprises me. I look at Belichick and I think he's so prepared. He wouldn't have that dexterity or that ability to pivot in games. Go back to your playing career with Bill. I mean, were there times, Mike, that you'd come to the sideline and Bill would say, screw it, we're just going to, things have changed?
I think that this has probably been out and probably been said, but, people would say, hey, we're going to make some halftime adjustments. And Bill would say, well, if we're waiting until halftime, it's probably going to be too late. Like, we better be making adjustments by the second or third series. Like, the game plan has already shown its hand. It's what they've practiced all week. Pretty much that's what it's going to be the rest of the game.
When did you gain his trust? When did Bill let you call things?
I went in there, and again, this is such a unique situation. I didn't start a game for 4 years. Had a conversation with him in free agency, and he had referenced plays that I had made in a preseason game. He's like, you remember that preseason game against Miami? He's like, that's what we're looking for. That's what we expect. And I went up there with just, a desire to try to be right and be perfect, which you can't be. You can't try to play like that. And I think it was just something where as things started to go on the first or second year, playing different positions, I think he realized that. I think he valued that, the versatility, the willingness to play special teams and really do whatever. Once you show him that, once you show any coach that, whether it's Bill Belichick or anybody, once you show them their willingness to do whatever you can to help the team win, that's how you earn trust.
I was watching the NBA the other day, and they were talking about how Jason Kidd in the huddle, being a former pro athlete, it's easier to sell your culture. It's easier to sell the moment. Jason Kidd's had that ball with 32 seconds left so many times. And I look at you and Mike Tomlin, who both have such a physical presence, that one of the things that's always remarkable about Tomlin, that he's never had a losing season, which is freaking ridiculous.
It is amazing.
And he's had some quarterback issues and some drama. Are there times, Mike, when you're in a moment and you do feel like your playing days and your presence helps you in moments? You can sell things.
I think that over the course of my career, I have been every one of those players that are sitting in that team meeting. I was a rookie who didn't know what he was doing. I was a player that changed positions midway through his second year. I was a free agent that signed for less as a signing bonus than what he had when he got drafted. I was a veteran player with a good contract that was expected to produce, and I was an aging veteran that got traded and went to a new team that had to try to help and be a leader. So through the course of that career, when I look in some of those guys' eyes, I'm like, yep, I was you. And I think that's what helps.
Mike, it's easier to be an offensive coach, right? Like, we see what's happening to the sport. And some of these great defensive coaches, Bill, Pete Carroll, Vic Fangio's a hell of a coach, Mike Zimmer.
Wonderful.
These are really good coaches. But I mean, you can't coach like you could 12 years ago. There's stuff you can't do. Do you ever think to yourself, God, could you give me a break here? I mean, your team's really physical. Like that's your stamp to me. Your teams are physical. But do you feel like sometimes the sport has teetered? Tom Brady feels this way. It's teetered a little too offensive.
I don't. I mean, I don't really get caught up in that. I want to be comfortable enough to coach every position on our football team. That's my goal. When I walk around and I go into meetings, I'm in there to learn, to help the players. I don't want to walk into a meeting and not be able to say something that could help one of our players. So my goal is to learn enough to what we're doing in all three phases to be able to help in drills on the field. Like this phase 2 right now, this is my most favorite time of the season, of the off season, is because we're working on technique, fundamentals, and conditioning. And sometimes when the season starts, you have 10 minutes for individual. Now we have 35 or 40 minutes. And this is when you can start to make strides and improvements. You're not focusing on so much plays, but it's the techniques and the details of playing offensive line or playing outside linebacker or playing receiver.
Belichick's history was always making a team play left-handed. I see some of that with you, where I see you attack a team's weakness. Has there been a team in the last couple of years that you have faced, and Mike, you thought to yourself, man, it may be a salary cap league, but they don't really have a flaw. Like, they're really hard to coach against?
I think that every single week. I do. In this league, I believe that if you don't play well, you are guaranteed to lose. I just that's what I believe. That's how I try to coach. And if you play well, you give yourself a chance to win. We try to treat every week the same, win or lose, whether it's a stretch where you go on the road and it's the Rams and the Chiefs and this and that and the other thing and or Buffalo, and it's one after another. But you really just focus on that week, and whatever you did last week doesn't matter.
So I defended Ryan Tannehill when he made kind of an average. He talked for a while and he made a small comment, and I said, give me a break. He's 34. He just lost a huge playoff game. He got replaced. They kind of bailed on him in Miami. He's fighting for his career. Give the guy a break. Like at the end of my career, if they could draft a talk show host, I'll be fighting like mad too. Right. Were you surprised the blowback he got for a fairly innocuous comment on Malik Willis?
There's not a whole lot going on in the NFL right now. So anything that gets said, people are going to jump all over. I've touched on this. I know the type of teammate Ryan is, and all I can tell you is the first couple of days have been really cool, having three great quarterbacks on our roster, watching them help Malik at practice. He's invited the rookies over already. They've already been at his house. They've had dinner. It's going to be a good dynamic.
It's the times I've seen little clips of you on YouTube. You're not a real barker, but you've got a player's sense of humor. Like you're a motivator. You can be kind of a smart aleck with players. Sure. Like how do you view yourself as verbally with players?
Oh, I have a relationship with all of them. Sometimes that's a little better than others, and the ones that want to chirp, I don't mind chirping, and because we have that type of relationship. So it's good. You can't have that. You can't say those types of things if you don't have a connection or a relationship, right? It doesn't work. And so when Bill and I would do that and go back and forth, it was because we had something that was built. We'd built a connection, been there for 8 years. I remember one time about my third or fourth year, I did something wrong and I was mad. So I went over and I sat on the offensive side, and the defense was over there and Bill was making adjustments. And I just went on the other side and I was just going to pout. And he came over and he said, "You look like Terry Glenn sitting over here by yourself," because Terry was a wide receiver at that time. And I was sitting where the wide receivers were sitting. And I was like, point made. And I got up and I went out there and I walked back, and I got on the defensive side. And you just kind of know, you just kind of know what's the right thing to say at the right time.
Was there a teammate you had as a player that, you were a big linebacker. Shit, they don't make linebackers like you. 6'4", 250.
Who I was scared to death of? Willie McGinnis and Richard Seymour.
Why?
Well, when I got there, I had remembered being in college and we used to watch highlights of Willie McGinnis when we were sophomores at Ohio State. We're like, right, this is what we're going to be one day. And I'm like, no, we're never going to be like that. He looked like the Banshee at USC. And, our D-line coach, Bill Young, used to put on his highlights, and we're like, what the, we're not doing that. And then I go and play, and then I get up there, and it was like, man, I wanted to do so well with the guys that had been there, right? Because Ted Johnson had been there, Teddy Bruschi, Willie. And I was like the new guy coming in, and it was like, how's this guy going to be? And I wanted just to do so well. And then we draft Seymour, and I get to play next to him, and he set me up for so many sacks. It was amazing. But Richard was just biggest, very similar to Jeff Simmons, just their stature and how physically strong they are.
Bruschi barely got recruited. I remember Bruschi in the Pac-10. I think it was Pac-10, Mike.
Right.
He was an undersized lineman. It was like San Jose State.
Played Desert Swarm.
And I can remember he's one of the best defensive Pac-12 players I've ever seen in my life. And I remember thinking, I don't think he can play on Sunday. He's too small. So when you're with Bruschi on the field, he always felt undersized. In fact, when he worked at ESPN, I was like, he brought a briefcase in one time. He was running marathons, and I was like, how the hell? I don't understand it. What was it with Bruschi?
Well, I think that there was just an attitude. There was just this part Filipino, part Italian that makes up a pretty vicious combination. And that's how I used to put it. He had this bitterness to him and it was a toughness, but he was also very engaging. He was very flexible. You know what I mean? Not only was he he had a great first step when you looked at him back in Arizona, you know, he had this power element, but he had this gumbiness to him that he could dip and move and bend. And, you know, he's kind of made a lot of plays doing that.
He did. Speaking of you, as the game has become more of a passing league, you're one of the exceptions where you're a power team, an old school team. You were 6'4", 250. And I look at you and I think, God, they don't make a lot of linebackers like you. In today's game, where would you play? What would you do? How would you coach you?
Defensive end. I mean, I'd probably be, or maybe I'd be a pass catching tight end. I'm not sure. No. We're only able to get, you have to take these defensive ends in college and make them outside linebackers. And you got to hope the inside linebackers that are in today's game in college can hold up, but we've got some guys that, aren't huge, but David Long and played a lot of football for us last year. And, we're excited about where he's going to be next year, but he's not the biggest guy, but plays fast. He plays physical. Zach Cunningham's not the biggest guy. But I think that they both play with a huge physical presence inside. So, we can only evaluate the guys that are coming out of college, and that's what it is.
Do you find it the college game's gotten much more finesse, much more spread offense? Is it harder to draft than it was when you broke into the league?
I don't know if it's harder to draft. I mean, it's just once you get them here, you look at the skill set and you want to teach them what we're doing. We teach something differently up front on the offensive line than maybe they do in college or they did for their team. We get a lot of defensive linemen that don't play with their hands, that are penetrating and just ripping the gap. And, so we change that and we want to, play with our hands and control the line of scrimmage and be able to shed players and they learn how to do it or, we move on.
I didn't think Derrick Henry was going to be a great pro. Obviously wrong. He had an interesting career. He got drafted and he was kind of a rotational guy for a while. And then something popped. Mike, take me back to his emergence from sharing carries to being unstoppable.
Well, I think it got to be a decisiveness. It's like when we're putting our scheme in, it was, where do I fit? Where do I run? And, I think finally just trusting the scheme, trusting the landmark, not trying to read too much. I think sometimes you get in trouble at any position that if you try to see too much, you're trying to do too much. And so I think he narrowed his focus. I think that he continued to work on his stiff arm and his second level. That to me, that's the biggest thing is we got to just continue to find ways to get him to the second level and hope that magic happens, and it usually does.
Who was the hardest running back you tackled? Adrian Peterson?
I mean, he was certainly there because I was older in my career. Jerome Bettis was a load when I got to North Carolina. We played him. Young LaDainian Tomlinson, those guys, those are hard guys. Priest Holmes, Ricky Williams, there's just no shortage of good backs.
Did you ever think, I think you fit in the NFL, but you do have the physical presence to fit in college. You could walk into a house and recruit kids. Was there ever a moment that you thought, I want to be the Buckeye head coach? Forget the NFL thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever thought it then. I just, after 3 years of being in college, spring was tough. Having played and enjoying coaching and watching baseball, right? When the kids are playing baseball in the spring, that was kind of like my time when I was playing. And so then when you go on the road for 5 days out of the week in the spring and you're gone and you miss pitches and strikes and home runs and all that stuff, it was like, man, maybe we ought to take this NFL look. We spent 14 years there. We kind of know the league. Let's see if we can do that. And Billy called when he got the job and everything kind of timed up.
College feels like a grind to me. It really does. And now they have
recruiting has forced it to be a grind. And it's like, Urban used to say, it's like recruiting is like shaving. If you take a day off, you're going to look like a bum. And you just, everybody, you're recruiting. I mean, I talked to a coach today, invited him to be on our a part of our internship program for training camp, the Bill Walsh program. And I called him and I just said, hey, excited to offer you the position. And he says, I said, what's going on? He's like, man, we got 3 official visits today, tomorrow, Friday. Like, we got 9 kids coming in, transfer portal. It's out of control, but we got to take them if they're looking to come to our place or they're going to go somewhere. I mean, it was like official visits. I'm like, it's May and they're coming on official visits. So it is year round.
Yeah. Were you a good recruiter?
Yeah, I was a good recruiter.
Were you? What was your sell? Well, you're selling the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it wasn't when you coach at Ohio State. It's not very hard to recruit. It really isn't. I felt like I did a nice job recruiting. I mean, the players that we were looking for and targeting, and you always lose a couple, but you get some too.
It's weird. It's not manufactured. Buckeyes hate Michigan. It's really deep. It's funny. I didn't grow up with that. I went to Eastern Washington University. I didn't hate Idaho.
Do they have gray turf or is that somewhere else? That's Eastern Michigan.
Michael Roos and I paid for the red turf.
You got the red turf.
Yeah. Problem is when it snows, it turns pink.
I was going to say, when you're known for your color of turf, that's an issue.
Hey, we're not bad for who we are.
So,
Cooper Kupp.
No question. What a great player. Fantastic player.
Yeah. So Eastern's always had good football programs. We score a lot of points. We don't play much defense. We won a national championship. It's okay. We always play No, it's fun. So I got to ask you, there's housing bubbles, there's tech bubbles, there's stock market bubbles. And during the last 6 months, I've been joking on the air, like we're in a wide receiver bubble. Tyreek Hill goes for 5 picks. I remember when I was on the air and I'm like, the hell is that? 5 picks. Randy Moss went for like a 4th to New England. And, AJ Brown, he's on the market. There's picks, stuff going on. Part of me is just Mike thinks, okay, I like my receivers, but God, you got to win the line of scrimmage. Did you look at this offseason a little bit, all these moves at wide receiver, and think we've kind of lost our way on the value of it? Or do you think the world's changing in this league?
No, I mean, I don't know. I know that every situation is different. And I know that everybody gets the same amount to spend. And, you have to make decisions. You have to make tough decisions. And so I don't know. I don't know where the receiver market's going to end up. I mean, I know the good players deserve to be compensated, and that's the nature of professional sports. But you also have to work within a salary cap, and you have to try to find a way to continue to do what's best for the entire team. And so I don't know. I don't know where the market's going. I know that, the salary cap's going to continue to go up. Specifically about AJ. I think everybody knows my relationship with AJ and, how much that meant to me. And I hope him, and we've had conversations, since he's been traded.
It just, it makes you sick, right? Like
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a personal side of this thing. When you try to do it like we try to do it and make a connection and, care about these guys off the field and making sure that they're healthy, mentally and physically. Yeah, there's a business side to it too. And that's what everybody, you have to understand that. And if you put a lot into something and, guys move on, you have to make cuts, you release guys. And so that's the hard part of it. But I'm not going to change the way that we coach. I don't want our coaches or myself or anybody here to change the connections that we try to make to teach them.
A lot of young coaches, Mike, struggle to relinquish during a game their side of the ball. I've seen a lot of coaches. It's like, okay, this is my job. This is my last chance. I feel like when I watch you, you're kind of holistically teaching the whole unit. You bounce around. You're like, I would call it, this is a compliment, a bounce around coach. You're always kind of, was that an easy thing, or your first year, were you like manic about, well, time out. I want to control my space?
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt like that was how I wanted to do it. You get, I figure once you get hired as a head coach, you've got one chance to do it. And then, so you better do it the way that you think is best. And, you try to hire good people, let them do their job, and you try to manage the game give suggestions. And again, I want to be good enough to say, hey, what do you think about this on special teams? And then everybody made a big deal, or it was joked about when I said, are you going to, call the defense or the offense? At any point in time, you get to call whatever play you want. You're the head coach, right? And it was a joke, but it was like, seriously, if I want to run a fake punt. If it doesn't work, it's on, everything that doesn't work is on me. That's how it goes. I'm okay with that. So I try to give input. I try to help and, respect the play caller and try to make those suggestions in enough time that they can make a call and so that it doesn't affect the team.
Finally, Tom's last game in New England, you coached against him and beat him with this pick six. All the years you practice against him, was there, obviously the answer is yes. There are things that you just instinctively know about Tom because you practiced against him every damn day. There is no secret sauce, but are there little things you felt like, okay, I saw this 1,000 times at practice. This makes Tom uncomfortable. Anything?
Well, it was more or less just and I told this analogy when we went up there in the playoffs. It was the line from the movie Catch Me If You Can, when the dad says to the son, you know why the Yankees always win? And the kid goes, because they have Mickey Mantle. And the dad says, no, because everybody's always staring at the pinstripes. And the point was, don't look over there and see it as Tom Brady and be like, oh my gosh, how many banners? Like, it was like, just go play our game. Here's what we know about him. They're going to mix tempo, or he's going to go, So that was the biggest point that I could probably take about playing against, Tom and the Patriots at that point in time.
I think his arm strength, I honestly feel his release is faster. That's the weirdest thing. Like, it's weird.
Wasn't there a movie where the kid had a tendon surgery or something, like the Rookie of the Year, and he was like a little kid and he was like throwing 95? I think Tom had that surgery, apparently.
No. Hey, Mike, I appreciate it. You're a busy guy. Thank you for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Enjoyed the conversation.